This video is sponsored by Carnivore Companion.
There's no more cucumber.
Alright, so I think there's been too much talk about trash cheese and not enough of making trash cheese, so today we're going to be making some trash cheese, or American cheese as people usually call it. And it's actually pretty simple to make. There are these ingredients: milk, butter, this is sharp cheddar, and this stuff right here, which is sodium citrate. Yes, it is a chemical, but in reality, all things food are a chemical reaction to each other. That's what gives us cheese and butter and milk. It's chemicals working together to make things happen. And this is sodium citrate right here. It's basically just the sodium from the citrate acid. And it's what helps emulsify all these things together and gives you that interesting texture that American cheese gives you. So let's just go ahead and get going. We get started by grating this cheese with a box grater, and then we will work our way to the milk and butter. And I'm explaining too much. This is too easy to be explaining what I'm doing. I'm just going to start shredding some cheese. In an effort to make this a little more bearable while I just grate this cheese, we'll tell you some cheesy jokes. We're going to need a box grater, 12 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese. You can do this with Monterey Jack, pepper jack. You just pick a cheese and make some American cheese out of it. But you know, whenever I'm making American cheese, all I can really think of is, what do you call a dinosaur made of cheese? Gorgonzola. Hey, do you know what happened when the air conditioning in the cheese factory broke? There was a meltdown. What's cheese without a cracker? Crack-a-lackin'. What did I do with my cheese handkerchief? I blew my nose. That's the best one. Don't shred your fingertips. Ugh. And you want to do this freshly grated because whenever you buy pre-shredded cheese, there is potato starch on it usually, or you know, wood bark for some reason. I guess it's a cheap ingredient. And it kind of interferes with the sodium citrate. So always shred your cheese if you're going to be making this fresh. Alright, so the next step is going to be to add some milk to this pot. We're going to need 150 milliliters of whole milk. That looks like it's about 3/4 of a cup. I'm an American guy myself, so milliliters is always foreign to me, even though it's a much easier thing to use. Yeah, it's just under 3/4 of a cup. It's not that much milk. To that, I'm going to add 25 grams of butter. And I will be placing this over pretty low heat. You don't want your milk to boil, because that may start separating the fats in the milk, and we don't need that. So as soon as you start seeing some wisps of steam come up, you need to turn it down even more or completely off, because all we're trying to do is get this butter melted and incorporated. And as soon as that is done, we will add in our 9 grams of sodium citrate, get that dissolved in there. Then we will start slowly adding in our cheese. Just add in little handfuls at a time and whisk until it's fully incorporated. Like, you don't want to see strands of cheese just floating around in there. You basically want it to look like a big yellow mash. There we go, starting to turn orange, add a little more. And it will start to thicken pretty heavily. It'll look like a nice cheese sauce by the time you add all of your cheese to this. And honestly, it already looks like American cheese to me, so that's always a nice sign. I need a little trash in my life. And I thought making it fresh would be nice for you guys too. Maybe make you a little less intimidated in the kitchen. Whenever you buy stuff like these chemicals we use in like molecular gastronomy, it can always be intimidating, but there's always info on the packaging to tell you how much to use. They'll give you a percentage to use by weight, and this one's a 0.5% to, I believe it's 7% by weight. Like, you can use up to 7% by weight of this. So if you're using 100 grams of cheese, you can use 7 grams of the sodium citrate at the most, and it should still be an effective amount. Alright, look at that. It looks like the most glorious cheese sauce, doesn't it? And before it starts setting up, because it will start setting up quickly, I need to go get the container I forgot to get, so before it starts setting up, get something plastic and that's pliable so that whenever you go to take it out, it will slide out much easier. Or if you have to cut it open, it'll be a less troubling time than having to break apart some glass thing. It smells just like American cheese. Excuse me. Trash. It smells like trash. But really in this context, whenever you make it like this, it feels much less trashy, which honestly makes me kind of happy, because I've definitely bought some questionable things in my life, including and not limited to hot dogs, Vienna sausages, Spam, potted meat, Little Debbie's, random cheeses. But now that I made this and you see what's in it, it feels much nicer just to be able to do this. It doesn't feel like I'm gonna just be drinking a bunch of, you know, vegetable oil or something like that. Because there are those American cheeses that do have all that stuff in them, but not all of them have it. Like you just gotta look at the labels like you should have been doing since you were a child. But you know, nobody ever taught you to do that. So now that you know this is like 4 ingredients right here, and it already looks like it's setting up a little bit, you should feel a little bit better about what you're eating. But of course, the big companies are going to have other things and emulsifiers to cheapen the product, so that is what it is. I'm going to go put this in the fridge, let it solidify a little bit. It's already kind of solidified now, but I want to get it to where I can slice it so I can make a cheeseburger out of it. So, cheese. Alright, so I'm running out of time in the kitchen right now, and it's still kind of liquidy in the middle, so I'm not going to really be able to pull it out and slice it right now, but I will get you a shot of that in a little bit. But for now, let's take some of this and make a cheeseburger, and it's gonna be, you know, just extra delicious, just considering that, you know, I made this from scratch. Alright, got my burger to about medium. Gonna take a nice little spoonful of this cheese. Put it right on top. Let it do its thing for a second, and we will see where we are. Now that is a trashy cheeseburger worth making if I've ever seen it. Give it a taste. You know what this tastes like? It tastes like you should like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out my Patreon. Links in the description.
Check out our newly released seasoning Steak Dust, along with our flagship seasoning Smokestack and our bestseller Tuckologen. Use the code CCUTube10 at CarnivoreCompanion.com to save 10% off your first order.